Recently, we've been doing some rounding. We've rounded numbers to the nearest 10. We've rounded numbers to the nearest 1 decimal place. And we've rounded numbers to the nearest 1 significant figure. And you've shown me that you can pretty much do all that. So that ranges from grade 1 all the way up to grade 5, because in answers to things like trigonometry, Pythagoras, area of a circle, you need to be able to do all those things. So rounding is really, really important. But it also links to a grade 5 topic, which is called bounds. It actually has a few names. Sometimes it's called bounds. Sometimes it's called limits of accuracy, and sometimes it's called error intervals. Now, I'm going to use the word bounds today because on Hegarty Maths, the error intervals clip is a little bit weird. I might go on to that tomorrow, but we won't do it on Hegarty. And limits of accuracy is kind of what you call it when you extend it to a higher level, a more complex level. So we're going to stick with the word bounds. So that'll be the lesson we're going to do today is bounds. And to be honest, you've probably not seen it in your everyday life, but it's really important for people who measure things. For people who measure any sort of lengths, it's really important. So people involved in construction, in joinery, in carpentry, it's really, really important, because if you get the accuracy slightly wrong when you're fitting a carpet, well, it's not going to fit in the room. If you get the accuracy slightly wrong when you're trying to build something in construction, whether it's a huge building or a table, your table legs will be uneven and stuff like that. So accuracy is really, really important. And bounds is just part of that. I'm not going to link it to anything in real life, but please just trust me, this kind of understanding is really important if you go into any sort of industry that measures things. It's the measuring that is really, really important. Okay, and remember it's grade 5, so you might need to watch this video a couple of times because it's not that easy. Okay, so bounds. And it's basically rounding but backwards. So I'm going to do this question with you. 150 has been rounded. They've done the rounding for you. And they've rounded it to the nearest 10. And the question they're going to ask you is, what is the upper bound and what is the lower bound? And what that means, the upper bound is what is the biggest number it could have been if we're rounding it to 150. What's the smallest number it could have been if we're rounding it to 150? So this number has been rounded to 150. When I do these questions, I often say this is quite important. It's been rounded to the nearest 10. I draw a number line, and at either end of this number line, I do the other 10s. So I get from the question that it's the nearest 10. I put the number that we've been given in the middle, and I put the other 2 at the other end. And you'll see why in a second. Now, first of all, let's look at the lower bound. What is the lowest number that would round to 150? Is it 147? Is that the lowest number that would round to 150? Or is there a lower number? Well, there's a lower number, isn't there? Would 142 round to 150? No, it wouldn't. That would round to 140, so it can't be 142. What about 144? Would that be the lowest number that would round to 150? No, that would round to 140. What number sits in the middle? What number sits here? Because this is the number that would round to 150. And that number would be 145. The lower bound, the lowest number that would round to 150 is 145. That would be the lower bound. Now, the upper bound is a little bit more complicated. Same idea, though. If I want the biggest number that would round down to 150, I'm looking for what number's in the middle. Now, you might be thinking 154. 154 would round down to 150, and you'd be right. But is it the biggest number that would round down to 150? What about 154.5? Would that round down to 150? Well, yeah, it would, because it wouldn't round up to 160. So 154 would round down to 150, but I can think of a bigger number. 154.5 would round down to 150. I can think of a bigger number. 154.9. Well, that would round down to 150. I can think of a bigger one. 154.9 recurring. That would be the biggest number that rounds down to 150. But, and this is the tricky bit, in maths, this is a little bit weird, but 154.9 recurring is actually so close to 155 that we actually say the upper bound is 155. Now, I know, we all know 155 would round up to 160. But when we're talking about bounds, because of the calculations that would come next, which you don't have to worry about, you just have to be able to find the bounds, we actually just say the lower bound is 145 and the upper bound is 155. And it's because 154.9 recurring is so close to 155 that actually the accuracy doesn't really matter. So we use 155 because it's much easier to use. Now I get that's a bit weird, so we're going to do a few examples. So, first example, you can pause and try it if you want. 320 has been rounded to the nearest 10. First thing I'm going to do, draw my number line. When I've taught this in the past, when people don't understand it, the number line really helps. So we've been given the number 320, and in the question it says nearest 10. So let's go 10 below and 10 above. Now we're looking for the lowest number that would round up to 320, and we're looking for the biggest number that would round down to 320. Remember, we're not bothered about these numbers because they would round down to 310. We're not bothered about these numbers because they would round up to 330. We're just bothered about this number here because that will be our lower bound, and this number here because that will be our upper bound. So, what's the smallest number that would round up to 320? Is it 318? No, I can think of a smaller one. Is it 312? No, that would round to 310. What's the smallest number that would round up to 320? 315. That would be the lower bound, and this picture really helps. It's the upper bound that sort of messes with your mind a little bit because of what I just explained earlier. You want to say 324. You want to say 324 is the biggest number that would round down to 320, but you'd be wrong because 324.5, 324.9, 324.9 recurring is actually the biggest number that would round down. But that is so close to a much easier number to write that we just say 325. Now, if you look at the picture, it does make a lot of sense. You've got the nearest tens, and all you want is smack bang in the middle of them. 315, 325. And if you follow that pattern of doing that number line, doing writing down whatever it's rounded to, and then finding the middle, it will always work. So we're going to keep going. The first few heavy questions are nearest 10 or nearest 1,000, same idea. I'm going to go on to slightly harder ones now. So these numbers have been rounded, they've already rounded for you to the nearest integer. What does integer mean? Integer means whole number. So these numbers have been already rounded to the nearest integer. So we've got 17. First step, draw your number line, and you put 17 in the middle. It's been rounded to the nearest integer, the nearest whole number. What's a whole number below 17? 16. And what's a whole number above 17? 18. And all we want for the lower and upper bound is the middle. because that's where we change from rounding up or down to rounding the other one. So for instance, this one would be the lower bound because it would be the smallest that I'd round up. This one would be the upper bound because it's the biggest that I round down. So what's the smallest number that we round up to 17? If you set your number line up, it's quite easy to do this. The lowest number that we go down up to 17 is 16.5. What's the biggest number that we round up? Sorry, wrong. What's the biggest number that we round down to 17? 17.5. Set your number line up and you just go halfway. And you decide what numbers to put on your number line based on what the question says it's been rounded to. Next question. 124. That has been rounded to the nearest whole number. Set your number line up. If you want to pause and have a go yourself, see if you get it right, go for it. What's going to go in the middle of my number line? The number I've been given. If they've rounded it to the nearest integer, what would the integer below be? 123. And what would the integer above be? 125. And if I'm looking for the bounds, I'm looking for this middle bit. Smallest that rounds up, biggest that rounds down. What will my lower bound be? What's the smallest that rounds up? Look at that number line. What's in the middle of those two numbers? 123.5. Now look at my upper bound. What's in the middle of those two numbers? 124.5. Now what you might want to do is pause the video and just have a go at the beginning of clip 137 on Hegarty Maths. The clip starts with, it sort of goes in the same process I am. It starts with rounding to the nearest 100 or 10, then it goes to integers, then it goes to decimal places. So you might just want to do a couple of questions until you think, oh, I don't know that one, and get stuck, and then come back to the video. It's up to you. Remember, you can always watch the Hegarty video as well. He'll help you too. So this number has been rounded to 1 decimal place. Draw your number line, put your number in the middle. The question says 1 decimal place. So on your number line, you're going to write numbers that's 1 decimal place below and 1 decimal place above. All you want to do then is look in the middle. This is your lower bound. What's in the middle of 7.4 and 7.5? 7.45. This is your upper bound. What's in the middle of 7.5 and 7.6? 7.55. Okay, so there is a little bit of this, but just follows a process. Try this next one. Pause the video and start now if you want. 11.7. Draw your number line, put your number in the middle. Remember, it's been rounded to 1 decimal place. So 1 below would be 11.6 and 1 above would be 11.8. What would go in the middle? Your lower bound would be 11.65 and your upper bound would be 11.75. Now we're going to try if they've been rounded to 2 decimal places. Draw your number line, put your number in the middle. This time it says 2 decimal places. 2 decimal places below would be 16.71. 2 decimal places above is 16.73. Because in every one of them, the only thing that's changed is the 2nd decimal place. What goes in the middle? Your lower bound, 16.715. Your upper bound, 16.725. Pause and try now if you want to. 3.67. 2 decimal places. So the second decimal place is what changes. Once I know the next number up and the next number down, I just need to look what the middle of those is, because that's where the rounding will change. 3.665 for the lower bound, 3.675 for the upper bound. Next, rounded to one significant figure. 300 has been rounded to one significant figure. These are the final questions in the quiz. These are a bit hard. What we've got to think about is, what's the first significant figure? It's hundreds. So we go down by 100 and up by 100. Look in the middle. Your lower bound is 250 and your upper bound is 350. These have been rounded to one significant figure. 0.09 has been rounded to one significant figure. Pause the video, have a go now if you want to. One significant figure, look at 0.09, where's the first significant figure? It's the 9. That is the second decimal place. So it's the second decimal place that needs to change. Now, this next one's a bit weird. What's after 0.09? It doesn't go 0.010, it goes 0.10. You have to be really, really careful when they get right to the end of the clip. If you've got to the point now where you start struggling to understand, just don't worry about the last few questions on the clip if they're too hard. If you can get the first bit, that'd be great. What's in the middle of these two? 0.085, that's your lower bound, and 0.095, that's your upper bound. Final example. This number has been rounded to two significant figures. Put your number in the middle of your number line. Two significant figures. They're my two significant figure. This is my second significant figure. So that's the number that I need to change on my number line. 5,500 and 5,700. Once you get those numbers on your number line, it actually makes the rest of the question really easy. Sometimes the hardest bit is getting those numbers, because then you can just see, well, what's in the middle of 5,500 and 5,600? Well, 5,550. That'd be the lower bound. Upper bound is the number that's in the middle of 5,600 and 5,700, 5,650. The hardest version is when you get something like this. Draw your number line. 0.037 in the middle. Now, where's my second significant figure? It's there. The zeros at the beginning don't count, remember. So down here would be 0.036 and 0.038. What's in the middle? 0.0365, 0.0375. They'll be in the middle on those number lines. The Hegarty Maths clip I've set for you is clip 137. Most of the lesson today should be spent watching this video and watching Mr. Hegarty's video. It is not an easy concept. It's the opposite of rounding. It's what's the smallest I could have rounded, what's the biggest I could have rounded. I'm only expecting 50% or above on the clip. So you're only aiming for 50%. I really do think you should try and do my number lines. When I've explained it to students that struggle in the past, the number lines really, really help them. If you're really not sure about this, and you do need to try the Hegarty. If you get 10%, that's fine. I can see you've tried it. I want to see you trying it. Really important you watch the videos though, and I can see whether you've watched the video or not. It really overwhelms you and you're really struggling. I want you to do another Hegarty clip instead, and I'm going to suggest a couple to you. One that might be good to do. It's nothing to do with this stuff. It's just something that would be nice to have come up on your memory. Hegarty 61. Hegarty 63, Hegarty 64, Hegarty 67, any of these, just do one of them. So I really, really want you to try Hegarty Maths 137, even if you need to watch this clip again. Remember, today's lesson, up to an hour you should be spending on this. And 30%, 50%, 10%, I don't mind, as long as you've tried. If you can't do it, try another clip. You've got to show me you've made the effort to do something today. So if you're really struggling, do another clip. Or email me, I can always send you another couple of examples. Tomorrow's lesson will just be revision, so it won't be as hard as this. Give this a go.